Documentaries are visual textbooks for the visual minds and a reference for the future generations to learn from. They are so important that they can be found on every platform, from free-to-air channels to OTT services. Any topic can be turned into a documentary if it has a compelling story behind it. What it takes to make a good documentary is through research and a deep understanding of the topic. My name is Abid, and this is What's Doing. Our guest today, Zaharuddin, is one of those documentary filmmakers who consistently champion the factual agenda. From creating impactful documentaries to nurturing future filmmakers, Shikin has carved out a unique space among Malaysia's factual storytellers. She is now the key figure behind the annual International Documentary Festival, Walk the Dog, held in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where documentary enthusiasts gather to exchange ideas and celebrate outstanding work from the region. Welcome, Shikin, to What's Doing, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, tell me one thing, Shikin. How did you become a documentary filmmaker and producer?
Well, it's a kind of a funny story, I guess. I did not study filmmaking. I actually had a degree in mechanical engineering.
Wow.
And I guess it wasn't meant to be. Dabble into, I would say, creative industry, becoming, I was actually was part of the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire team. Yeah, I heard that you also did.
Yes, I did like 130 episodes back in India.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, started there. And then as we go along, did a lot of factual content productions. And I guess kind of like documentary found me.
Okay. That was your first love, guy.
It's something that suddenly, when you go around doing production, doing a lot of content, and then suddenly there's one genre that kind of sticks to you. And I think that happens to, I would say, factual content. So a lot of factual content programs, and I get documentary is one of them.
So is there any substantial audience for documentaries in Malaysia?
You'll be very surprised. Actually, everybody was wondering that, is there anybody watching documentaries? I had that questions myself. And the short answer to that is yes, there are documentary lovers out there. Of course, in comparison to those who want, entertainment, of course, it's not that much, but we do have documentary audiences.
I mean, in large amount of numbers, or just one of those few elite class who are watching only factual content?
No. Actually, no. I guess that's what made us start Walkabout Asia. When we did, as we know, producing for television stations, producing for broadcasters, we kind of think people keep saying that, Shikin, not sure. When you do proposals, it's like you want to do factual content and they'll be like, no, maybe not so much documentary. So we kind of I think there are. So we started Walkabout Asia, opened up a small channel in Facebook, and surprisingly, there's a lot of viewers. We start to gain and we start to collect audiences. I mean, Walkabout Asia Facebook itself right now reaching 700,000 followers.
Wow.
So I guess that itself proves we have documentary audiences.
I'm going to come back to Walkabout Asia later. But first thing I want to know, but why are like you said that, people are there who want to watch documentaries. But why are broadcasters so hesitant in commissioning documentaries in Malaysia? Because I only can say that RTM has been doing it year on year, documentaries, and they have, they commission X amount of hours of documentary. But I haven't seen any other platform which, make it a point to make those many documentaries a year. Why are they so hesitant?
Quite sad, isn't it?
It is. Actually, there's so many stories out there.
Yes, true. Well, if I may be as open as I can. RTM has its KPI, I would say, being saluran informasi. It's not surprising that they actually, it's their job. Use documentaries, of course, as an educational tool. Sad to say, or maybe in terms of other broadcasters in Malaysia, which is not the, they are more into rating business. So they truly believe that maybe there's not many documentary lovers out there. So it's not that quite, it doesn't make as good money as how the other contents
The
of
psychodramas.
your singing reality shows, your dramas, and your movies. And I think that's one of the main reason why broadcasters in Malaysia right now. But we have to still remember Majalah Tiga is one of the longest running documentary magazine program, and it still does until today. So there must be something to it, that they kept that program, and it's quite high rating in such a way that they had to be. It's still running until today. So I think one of the main reason is, for me personally, I think they think it doesn't have that many audiences, and it relates directly to the numbers.
Okay, so it's money over the matter.
Yes.
So research is very crucial when we make a documentary, and the kind of research you have to do, the kind of layers you have to go through to make that story, to look at from different perspective, different voices you have to hear, to put down structure to your documentary. Now, how challenging is it for you to conduct this research and while working on a particular project?
You're right, Abid. Research is crucial, is really important, especially when we make documentaries. Mainly it's because when we do documentaries, we try to be as unbiased as we can be. Our job is to tell a story from a lot of different perspectives. We have a certain angle of a story, we want to portray, we want to give as much perspective so that our audience, when they watch it, they could make their own decision, they can form their own opinion on the particular subject that you present. So definitely, yes, it's very important. And in terms of challenges, I guess to get those both sides, especially if you're doing documentaries that really touch a lot of sensitive issues, and you really would like to try to present all sides of opinion and perspective. So that will be kind of the main challenge. And the other thing is that it takes time. I guess another challenge is, time equals money.
Yeah.
So, that itself, the pre-production before you actually do the content, do the actual shooting it's a challenge on its own. So in terms of documentary filmmaking, sometimes people do not see why does it cost so much?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're not paying some A-grade celebrity.
No, it's not a structured thing that
Right.
these are three actors, they're going to perform, and by the end of 3 days of shoot, your first episode is going to be ready. So it's not that. Means every research, you interview different people, you look at different locations, permits and God knows all which goes behind it.
Correct. So that's already in the part where you're going to already ready to shoot. But as you are searching for your story, what story you want to do, and you're looking and you do a lot of research interviews, and there's so many different angles. So you would like your best. Research is so crucial in presenting the best angle of the story for your audience, so that they could actually formulate their own opinion. How are they going to, look at it? And of course, as a filmmaker or the director of the documentary itself, are you trying to, put in your particular opinion? So that
Are you pushing it towards?
Are you pushing it towards that way? So in terms of doing documentary, it's a lot of responsibility actually.
Yeah.
Because the information, the message that you think that you want to try and give out, it could really make a difference to somebody who's watching.
Now coming back to the Walk the Dog Festival. In the last 3 years, this amazing festival has been going on in Malaysia, and tell us something about it. What it is all about? How have you put it all together? And what's the history and what's the future of it?
So Walkabout is an international documentary festival, which was we initiated in 2022. Was supposed to be much earlier, but then COVID. And our main objective when we actually think of let's do this, we my partner and I, we've been, in the documentary circuit, visiting some few documentary festivals around the world. And there's a lot of things that we think that, we should bring this back. We should bring this back. And I guess while waiting for someone else to actually do it, we were thinking that, maybe we should start. Let's try and do it. So we did it. We put together some few friends. We had some of our networks, created what we hope to be a hub for factual content creators. So we hope that one day Walk the Dog will be a place where documentary filmmakers from Southeast Asia and Asian region will come, where they could network and they could meet and they could exchange ideas and basically be around like-minded people. Because the thing about documentary filmmakers, and I think maybe in Malaysia, sometimes you feel alone. If you meet a couple of other documentary filmmakers, they'll be like, am I the only one who likes butterflies? Am I the only one who likes about culture things? But basically it's not. And when you're surrounded by like-minded people, you kind of feel like a bit more encouraged to continue your craft and do what you like. So that's the main thing what we like.
So you're putting all of these guys to come down for this festival, and also the local Malaysian documentary enthusiasts who want to get into documentary filmmaking.
Correct.
So that's basically a platform you're giving all of them.
Correct. People heard about Cannes Film Festival and Sunny Side of the Dog. It's really expensive to go there.
It is.
So I was just thinking that, okay, why don't, we try and bring some of you speakers over so that our local content creators could come and learn and experience and gain knowledge so that, Malaysia could produce international quality documentaries that could travel outside. Because Malaysia, we are rich with stories. We have a lot of stories and untold stories. And I guess, waiting to be told. So that's the whole first plan. So we did it first here in Langkawi. For the first 2 years, it was done in Langkawi. This year, 2024, is the first time we did it in Kuala Lumpur. Please don't tell me where it's going to be next year. We have no idea.
Even in KL.
Well, we did have some few requests to still keep it in Kuala Lumpur. No promises.
Okay. But I'm really looking forward for the next one, because this year there was a great participation. I presume that there were a lot of people who joined in, and also my team went for the festival, and they were just singing praises about the festival, that it had been done so well, and they got to learn so much about documentary filmmaking in those 2-3 days we just spent there.
Thank you so much. It was really, it means a lot to hear it.
Great job. Keep on doing it. So many Southeast Asian broadcasters have reduced their commissioning of documentaries lately in the last few years. What challenges does this pose for filmmakers like you?
Sometimes people forget when we produce documentaries. Let's just put aside the Southeast Asian story a bit. But right now, if you were to produce documentary like way back when, where can it be aired? You yourself mentioned that our private broadcasters doesn't have that, even a documentary belt, right? Not even a single documentary belt. Yep. And everybody have to rely, let's say, on RTM. Yeah. So even if you have one, where can we watch documentaries? So the first thing is you like to produce, but then nowadays we have social media. Everybody can have their own channel. We can have YouTube. So, okay, there's one avenue that's coming out. So in general, broadcasters around the world is already having the issue of competing. Where are audience consuming content nowadays? It's no longer in the traditional television. So everybody can consume content through your mobile phones, right? So generally, in the whole world, everybody is managing this loss of audience. So in general, I would say that it's not only affecting documentaries. In terms of general commissioning jobs, everybody is affected, all genre. So when it comes back to documentary, it's not really that declining, actually. What we're trying to do is actually, because now there is more avenue to watch. Yep. There is more channel. And it's just right now, they are managing how much do they need to source out for their own, use. So I think as a filmmaker nowadays, you'll be very surprised. China, Indonesia, even
Singapore.
I guess.
They're very aggressive. Singapore right now is very aggressive with their documentary commissioning. Where CNA is concerned, CNA has been like really doing some really good work.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, it's on the upside. It's just that for us, we are so used to the National Geographics and the Discoveries and the BBCs. But there are so much more. In fact, if you were to talk about the Netflix on documentaries, there's Curiosity Stream and there's Water Bear and DocuWay, correct, exactly, from India. So these are all an upcoming. So the outlet is for our filmmaker to really know and get in touch and make sure to be in front of all these new digital broadcasters, and so that we could continue back. Because the rising of documentary is actually, I would say, on the way up.
But why not in Malaysia? That's my only question. That is, if it's growing everywhere else, what means? I think you answered that question before. That
Yes,
it's not hitting the bang on the bug.
One RTM right now currently is the only one who's actually commissioning documentaries. The rest, if I really need to name, our Media Primas, our Astro, TV Al Hijra, TVS. TVS is actually producing more documentaries. They are actually quite pioneering a lot of factual content to be out there. So we could actually really tap into that. So basically producing it, it's one. Airing it, it's another thing. So when you produce documentary, you want it to be, you want audience to watch it. Where can they watch documentaries? So I guess, we're trying to do it. So I guess my next part is that's where Walkabout Asia comes in. So Walkabout Asia is our newly launched travel documentary platform. So this is where we are focusing on, it's a Asia-focused travel documentaries made by Asian filmmakers. Because another part where people doesn't realize is you might watch Asian documentaries, but it's made by the Westerns, with a Western perspective. There's so many good documentaries coming from Korea, Japan, China, India, and we have yet to see them. There's no way for us to see them. And that is where Walkabout Asia is going to play a part in closing that gap.
So you tell me more about Walkabout Asia, this platform you're talking about.
It's newly launched. You can actually go to www.walkabout.asia, and currently we are having it right now free for everyone to watch until next year.
And then it's going to be a paid service?
Yes, it's going to be a paid service. So we focus on travel documentaries. Currently, we have partnership with RT Russia, and we also have partners with China and our Indonesian friends. And this is where we hope that we could create an avenue where documentary filmmakers, they can watch documentaries from Asia by Asian filmmakers. So next year, we're going to have, it's more of a paid service coming up next year.
Yeah, that's a great initiative. I think, to be very honest, I didn't know about that one. But I'd love to look into what all content is being out there. But, Malaysia has got so many great factual stories, which is like waiting to be told. And how can new documentary filmmakers navigate the industry to bring those stories to life?
I guess it's a two-part answer to this. One, you can just create your own channel. That's one. Because when you create a story, you want people to watch, you want to find a place, a platform for it to be aired. How is your story going to reach your audience? So if you don't have a channel, so you have to rely on broadcasters. So that's where sometimes people get a bit like, that's the other part of it, is to create quality documentaries. Unfortunately, Malaysia have a lot of good stories, but we do have some, but we have yet to reach a certain quality of documentaries where they can travel. So the other part of it is that you have, people like to join festivals, but to join festivals, that's another part to actually, how do you going to join festival, how to get it. So you have to produce it. When you want to produce it, it goes back to budget. So everything goes back to money. So to do documentaries, sometimes people think that, I have to do documentaries. It has to be 1 hour. It will have to cost like 2 million, 300,000, 500,000. But I get through Walkabout Asia, we kind of prove that it doesn't have to be that way. Start small. You can start with a 5-minute, a 7-minute. Choose a subject that you are very passionate about. Take your phone or a camera, start filming a bit. You have a social media channel, air it. I guess this could be the small steps. And that's how we started with Walkabout Asia. So the couple of things that we prove is that, we have about, we even have one short stories that could have about one of our highest watch, about 5 million. It's a story about in Langkawi. And we do have another story that reaches about 2 million. It's an indigenous man from Senoi, and it's a short story about traps. You know how the indigenous people will create traps to capture some mouse deer? As simple as that. So again, it doesn't have to be like really big, really long. Start small. So I think you can navigate it first that way. And hopefully, I guess that's what we try to do with Walk the Dog, is to elevate the standard of Malaysian documentaries. So that's where we try to bring all these documentary experts that come in, storytelling, technical, distribution. It's an ecosystem. I think Malaysia needs its own documentary ecosystem.
Wow, we can only dream about it at this point of time. But taking away from what you said, that you asked the filmmakers to start putting it on their platform. So taking it from there, it's like people are getting, their attention span lesser than a goldfish these days. And how do documentaries keep their audiences engaged when people don't have that, attention span of putting an hour and a half to watch one big story?
I'm sorry, I have to disagree. You can binge watch on Netflix for 6 hours. So it's attention span. It's the story. It's the story. So I think having a good storytelling skill on how to keep your audience engaged. I'm sure you've seen in Netflix some documentary about, David Beckham. It's still some sort of documentary people can watch for an hour. It's no issue. So I think it's about the story.
No, I'm talking about the local broadcasting documentaries. I'm not talking about Netflix. Those are like serious, expensive production value and a lot of big stars in India. People will go and watch those big stars. But you're right. The story has to be very engaging.
Yeah, the short answer to it is having a good story. And I think as we practice, you have to practice making documentary. You have to practice your craft, right? So, I'm sure if I were to look back at my first documentary, I'll say, oh my God. But you have to practice your craft. So having good stories, finding good stories, equip yourself with skills in creating, making. And I think it doesn't matter how many minutes. It can be a very good 3-minute, it could be an amazing 40-minute stories. I think the attention span is not really the issue. It's the story. I think if you find a good story, your audience will watch it.
I love the kind of optimism you have, for the viewers who are busy on the TikTok and Instagram story. But yeah, I'm with you on a good story. Obviously, will engage the audiences no matter what. So coming back to how rapid things are moving. Things change in a matter of hours when you look at social media. And one story which is developing right now, by the end of the day, it might be a completely different story altogether. So considering the rapid pace of daily news, and documentaries usually take a lot of time to make. And by the time they get ready, how do you ensure the topics remain relevant and just before they're released? Means you might have been working on a documentary for the last 1 year. But by the time it comes out, the story completely changes. How do you keep yourself abreast of these changes? And it shouldn't, bring down the value of the story which you've been working on.
I think the keyword that you used in your question just now was daily news. I would say that when we create documentaries, we try to have it as long tail as possible, meaning it's something that a story angle that could last at least a couple of years. So when it comes into daily news, you could touch on certain current affairs, but maybe the angle doesn't really, depending on how it changes. It's a documentary. You could use current stories, but I think the keyword for me is long tail. Find a topic that could relate to for a long time. I would avoid something that is very, very... You could do a story about COVID today, but your angle of doing COVID today might be different from the story of COVID in 2020. So the angle is that, because that story is...
You need to find a new hook,
Yes,
and a different hook.
Of currently the same story. So yes, because or else it will be, like you said, you won't have time the moment it's done. And that's another beauty thing about documentaries. You mentioned you are producing it for a year. Being flexible as you follow your story. As it goes along and suddenly something happens, do you change course? Do you follow your course? Or as you go along, as you do your research, you find a much more better story. And the other part of documentary, when do you stop? When do you stop your story? When is the end? Because there's no such the end for documentaries. So there's another...
Forever in development.
Your story doesn't really the end. That's the story, you know. It's an ongoing process. So when you have a certain topic, and as you're producing it for a year, you meet up a lot of angles, and it should be a fun process, I guess. I love documentary, don't I?
I know. I can completely see it in your eyes. Okay, coming back home, and you know, every filmmaker these days need that kind of support, whether it's financial, whether it's any other kind of support to get their stories made. Finas has got this DKD and DKK, which I think have a little bit of fun for documentary filmmakers also. How is that grant helping the new documentary filmmakers? And how should the documentary filmmakers make use of this grant?
I think the grants provided by FINAS is very useful, but I think the other part to see is how useful can it be? I have a couple of thoughts in this. Sometimes FINAS will go and say, okay, you know, they have some road to Oscar. But I had a discussion this with my partner. I was say, like, which one do you think is easier? To get an Oscar in film or to get an Oscar in documentary, right? Don't you think it's much easier? The one of a couple of years back, Elephant Whisperer. Don't you think we can have that baboon whisperer, orangutan whisperer here, or hippopotamus whisperer here in Malaysia? We have a lot of those kind of stories. And we have the talent pool to actually produce such documentary quality programs. And if those budgets were actually being allocated and say that, okay, Malaysia wants to win the next documentary Oscar award, and this is the amount of money. So the amount of money that needs to be prepared or, you know, ready by FINAS must meet that challenge. The other part is that, maybe you do know this, the current DKDs for documentaries about 100,000. So what kind of documentary can be produced in 100,000? So that's a question mark, right? So what kind of documentary you expect to receive with 100,000 budget? The next question they give, or the next thing they say, is that it has to be aired somewhere. So how many broadcasters are in Malaysia who wants to air your documentary?
Maybe for that 100,000.
Yes, part of it has to be aired. Because, you know, you don't want to do a documentary, this is it, and then your mom watch it, your grandmother watch it, and that's it.
Home video.
Right? So, you know, it has to be aired. So right now, they had to make sure the broadcasters are ready to air documentaries which are produced or receiving grant from FINAS. So they cannot rely only on RTM. There's so much only thing that RTM can air. So that all the other broadcasters must be able to support. So our audience, our local audience, are able to watch these documentaries which were produced or which are receiving grants. You could even have a belt, a series where, you know, these are all the documentaries that were produced under the FINAS grant. So that could be a place. So with that, you know, so our filmmakers, they know whatever documentary they produce, it will meet the audience. So I think it helps, because sometimes, you know, if you do documentaries and you do not think the audience in the end.
You know, who's going to watch it? I mean, if you're not thinking about the audience, you have to think that somebody else is also going to watch apart from you.
So I think actually FINAS does its part in producing budget to do documentaries. But then it goes, you know, what is it for? You know, 100,000, what is it going to add? What's the purpose? How going to be? And my other maybe thing that I would say is, let's try to get our Oscar winning documentary instead of just, you know. Things is much more easier.
I mean, it makes complete sense. And what you said about, orangutan whisperer can easily happen in Malaysia. Our friends flying down just to see the orangutan.
Yes, we have hornbills. We have literally, so many species that's very unique only to Malaysia.
See, documentaries take a lot of time to make. It takes a year and a half, 6 months. It's a long process. It's not your usual drama. In a week you'll have a few episodes done. And the people who are working on those documentaries, and they get frustrated. There's a cast or there's crew, and it's not your song and dance kind of stuff. It's serious stuff, factual stuff. So how do you manage, to mitigate this frustration which sets in a crew when you're making a documentary?
Get a different crew. Get a fun-loving, documentary-loving crew. It's very important that the whole team understands the mission of the documentary. And I would say that we make it a must that everyone in the team understands the story that we're looking for. I guess that keeps the interest going because, I think anybody, when you lost the plot of like, what are we doing here? How long are we going to wait for this crocodile to come or something like that, So you understand what we're trying to achieve. The whole team do understand what we're trying to get, chasing sunsets and sunrise every single day. I think it's important to have the right type of people. Unfortunately, sometimes I do understand in Malaysia, it's quite hard for us to have really only documentary filmmakers because we've got to make a living. One day we do documentaries, the other day we do drama, one day we do a TV commercial, certain projects just wrapped up in 2-3 days. And suddenly when you get jumped into a project that is never ending, well, if the money is never ending, then nobody will complain, right?
Yeah.
But
the taps are on is fine.
Yes, the tab is on, it's fine. I guess for me, we usually stick to the same team that understand what we are doing, and they truly understand the whole mission. So I'm happy to say, I hope I never had that kind of much.
Oh, wow. So basically that means for new filmmakers, that is very, very important that everybody is looking in the same direction as the film.
They understand the story that they the story that they're doing, the story that they're working on, and what they're trying to get. Because there's no script. You have an outline, you have a treatment, you hope for a certain outcome. Sometimes you don't get it. What happened if you don't get it? Actually, for me, that's the whole process. Oh my God, the thing that you're waiting for did not come, did not happen. So what do we do? Is it the end? Do we wait some more? Do we continue filming? That's the fun part.
Indeed, that's the fun part. Okay, see, there are very few people like you who are so passionate about documentaries. And the talent pool in Malaysia, sorry to say, it's still dwindling. The numbers are not saying that, okay, the new breed of filmmakers are more inclined towards fiction rather than factual. So what are we doing to nurture and increase this talent pool in Malaysia?
If sometimes we use the word documentary. When you use the word documentary, sometimes people would think heavy, serious, very save the world kind of stories. But I would like to use factual content more. And we have a lot of factual content creators out there that document their everyday travels, that document the food that they see, and document the culture, the people they meet. So for me, that's also some sort of a documentary. So in terms of talent pool, with the technology, it's not that hard to produce one and to become a content creator. And I think that is number one. So it's already a low barrier to entry for you to do this. As part of Walk the Dog effort, we have this program called Small Story, Big Impact. This Small Story, Big Impact falls under Walk the Dog program, whereby we offer 5,000 ringgit grant to new and emerging filmmakers. And each year we'll have different theme. For this year, we have a theme which is Kuala Lumpur Old Charm, stories focused on downtown Kuala Lumpur. So this is one of our effort in terms of making, giving opportunity to new emerging filmmakers to pitch to us the story that they like. We chose about 8, and they were given about a month and a half to produce. And we have mentoring. This year we have a mentor, an Emmy Award documentary filmmaker, Chris Schuler, came down, and they had about like a whole 2 days crash course on how to do good storytelling for a short documentaries. And during the festival, we premiere all these 8 small story, big impact stories, and we celebrate the best outstanding documentary at our closing ceremony, which is at the Water Dog Night. And that is also already one part of the initiative on our side in terms of helping to nurture upcoming new talent. As I said, it's sometimes you feel alone. You need to be surrounded by people that have the same passion, and you network. And I think Small Story Big Impact during our second year was very, very well received. So much so that everybody keep now waiting for next year's Small Story Big Impact.
No, that's a great job which you have done, and we are all very thankful that you started something like this, because our industry need those new filmmakers, factual filmmakers who want to do this kind of documentaries, as well as make shows which will last a long time, rather than just watching and consuming it and then forgetting about it. So that brings us to the end of the show, and thank you so much, Shikin, for coming in and sharing with us all your valuable insights about factual content. And we wish you all the best for Doc Festival coming in the near future, and for your next documentary, whichever you are working on at this point of time.
Thank you so much, Abid. I'm very happy. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I hope to see you next year.
That was Shikin, the co-founder of Walkabout Asia. Documentaries remain relevant because they teach us something new with every story. They provide perspectives on causes, questions all sides, and offer a comprehensive view of issues that affect us in meaningful ways. Shikin and her team strive to do this every day, and we hope to see her community of documentary filmmakers grow significantly. Thank you for watching, and until the next episode, keep stewing.